When you get laid off, most people think about losing the paycheck. But what no one really prepares you for is losing that sense of who you are. So today I want to talk about the identity crisis that comes with a layoff and how you can start rebuilding your life without tying your identity to your job. So if you've been laid off and you feel untethered, lost, or you quite don't recognize yourself anymore, then this video is for you. Because when you lose your job, which is a big part of your identity, it feels like you lost a part of you. And what makes it harder is that the world expects you to move on so quickly, update your resume, apply for jobs, stay positive, all without asking, how are you doing emotionally? Hey guys, I'm Shani and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as I lost my job over 2.5 years ago and I've been navigating, rebuilding my life ever since. And if you're looking for a community of support and inspiration, then this is definitely the channel for you. Now today, let's jump into exactly what you guys came here for. So I'm gonna say something that you might not always agree with, is that we don't just work for the money. And don't get me wrong, I was a high 6-figure earning girl, right? Top of the food chain, making really good money, high in my company and my organization, loved my job. But also it took away the work structure, the validation, and that sense of belonging, because your job answers questions for you like, what do you do? Where do you belong? And what are you contributing? And when that happened to disappear overnight, it creates this really quiet panic. I mean, I really started panicking. I don't know about you. I started panicking because it made me ask, if I'm not this anymore, then who am I really? And it's something that I had to realize, is that the layoff didn't just take away my job. It took away my sense of self. And I don't know if you guys understand that feeling, that when you're working and you're doing this job that you love and all of a sudden it's gone, it is a shock to your system. And then I was left asking myself this question, who am I now? This is the part that no one warns you about. And that is that in-between gray space where you're not who you was at work, right? That's gone, but you're not yet who you're becoming. And that's the space that feels uncomfortable, embarrassing, and even shameful at times. It's that thing where you feel like, who am I and where do I belong? That's that space that I think I dwelled in a long time. So I avoided the question of, so what do you do? I really didn't know how to answer that question anymore once I lost my job. It was a very uncomfortable question for me because I don't have a job. So everything I thought I was tied to that title, to that position, to that company, to that salary that defined me. I felt smaller in certain rooms where I was in rooms with people who was very much so high achievers, had their big positions, doing really well. I felt really small in those rooms. I didn't want to be called upon to answer any questions or to have conversations with anyone that wanted to know what's going on with me. You know, you get in that space where you start comparing yourself to seeing people online. Like, I'm doing content creation and then I'm looking at other people who are doing it. And now I'm like, why I'm not there yet? You know, it's that saying of like, well, this wasn't on my bingo card for 2026. When I got laid off in 2023, this was not on my bingo card. I did not expect to be here unemployed at 51 years old. And so you start questioning your value. I really struggle with my value. What am I bringing to the table? What am I adding? And if this is you, I need you to hear this. Discomfort doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're transitioning. And we have to remember that, is that we did not fail just because we lost our job. It doesn't define us. We're just now transitioning into another space. And we're just in that in-between space where you haven't got the job yet. You're still laid off. Things are not moving. You don't see things moving. You hope they move, but we don't see them moving. But at the same time, we're questioning our value, but you're not failing. You're just in a transition space. One of the most important shifts that you're going to have to do after a layoff, job loss, whatever it may be, is separate our identity from the title. That was one of the hardest things I had to learn, because once again, if I don't have the title, if I don't have the job, then who am I? That is something that's one of the hardest things that we have to do, because your job was something you did. It was not who you were. It doesn't completely define who you are. Before the layoff, you were, let's say, resilient, right? capable, thoughtful, you were adaptive, creative, you was all these different things. But remember, none of these things left you just because the job did. Please know that you didn't leave, your value didn't leave the building with your job title. All those things that made you who you were, all those things that you brought to the table for this job that made you get those positions, that was able to move you up in the company, that was able to allow you to even land that position, all those great qualities and values you still have, we now have to reposition them and move forward into becoming the next person in our new chapter in life. I'm gonna give you a few things to help you start rebuilding your identity so you can move past the identity crisis stage when you get laid off. First is that you're going to reclaim small routines. When we were working, right, when we had our job, we was used to a routine. We get up, we work out, we have some breakfast maybe, or either we just work out, shower, drop kids off, go to work, have breakfast. That was a routine. Believe it or not, that is our morning routine because we're there at that job for 8 hours. And at 5 o'clock, then we have an evening routine. Now you're going to have to start creating small routines for yourself. For me, that looks like I get up in the morning, I work out, I intentionally sit down and have breakfast. I actually enjoy my breakfast. I intentionally set that time. Once I'm done, the next step is that I'm going to go now and I'm going to sit at my desk and I'm going to work. I'm going to apply for some jobs. I'm not going to overwhelm myself. I give myself a limit on how many I apply for a day. And then I move on and I start creating content. I start doing other things that I need to do maybe around the house. That is how I create small routines to kind of replace the routines that I used to have. The second thing you're going to do is that you're going to name who you are outside of work. Your job title is not who you are anymore. It was never who you are. Now you get to decide and you get to ask yourself, who am I when no one is paying me? I thought it was such a good question. Who am I when no one is paying me? I am still creative. I'm still intelligent. I am still collaborative, right? I still work well with others. I am still all of that. I'm still very much so driven. Like none of that left me just because the job left me. And it was my dream job, y'all, like dream job girl. But it didn't define me. I let it define me too much, but I had to figure out who was I outside of that. So that's what you have to really ask yourself. Third thing is that let yourself evolve. Let yourself evolve. You don't have to rush into this new label. You don't have to rush and quickly become this other person, or you don't have to rush and quickly like, oh my God, I gotta find a job right now, which is gonna take some time given this job market. So allow yourself to evolve slowly. Allow yourself to define things in your life slowly. Allow yourself to figure out what you want to do next slowly. When you rush yourself to do things, you start feeling overwhelmed, you start feeling anxiety, pressure, stress, and all that does nothing for us. So we have to let ourselves evolve slowly and naturally and see where it takes us. Listen, we got to have faith. If you don't have nothing else, you got to have faith in knowing that you're going to make it through this and that God is going to provide. If that's where your religion is. I don't want to speak too soon, but that's where mine lies. And then the last thing is that you want to talk about it. You want to find yourself a community or people that you can talk to about how you're feeling about losing your job. Not everybody's going to get it. I realize that people who have jobs don't really kind of get those of us who've been laid off and those of us who don't. Because for some reason, they think we should be able to find one simply because they have one. So find yourself a community of people, like right here on my channel, that understands where you're going through, that understands the emotional steps. A job loss is almost like a loss, like a death almost. You go through stages of grieving. You really do. And it's okay to do that. So find yourself a community of people that can support you and help you rebuild yourself, day by day, because understand that rebuilding yourself isn't going to happen overnight. So if this conversation has helped you in any way or made you feel less alone, then I want you to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell as I upload new videos weekly. And also share this video with someone who might be going through the same thing that you're going through and dealing with that identity crisis. Because this channel is about authentic conversations around layoffs, around identity crisis, life shifts, and reinventing our lives with intention. And if that's you, then I welcome you to the community. And I'm so grateful that you guys decided to watch this video to the end. But I want you to do me a favor, down in the comments, I want you to answer the question, after your layoff, or after your job loss, what was the hardest part of your identity that you had to let go of? Let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.